So in this video, we're going to be following on from the previous videos, the foundational videos of working with Elementor and Elementor Pro. And in this video, we're going to be delving into dynamic tags. Now, dynamic tags opens up a world of possibilities. And if you pair it up with tools like advanced custom fields, pods, or toolset, you have a ton of options available. So if you're ready to take your design skills with Elementor Pro to the next level, join me and I'm going to show you exactly how to start using these dynamic tags. Now, before we fire up Elementor, let's get two important things out of the way first of all. This is a Pro-only feature. If you don't have Elementor Pro, you won't be able to take advantage of what we're going to cover in this video. So please bear that in mind. Secondly, what exactly are dynamic tags? So according to the Elementor documentation, dynamic content or dynamic tags draws content from the website or from the current page or post, changing dynamically according to the page or post it's on. So what exactly does that even mean? Well, I've opened up a unstyled page on the test site we're going to be taking a look at, and we're just going to take a look at what you normally see as an archive. So if you're creating a blog or something like that, you'll have your posts listed in an archive, and each one of those listings inside an archive would have things like the featured image, an excerpt, the title, some other information, maybe some meta tags with the date, the author, and so on. All of those pieces of information are dynamic tags. So when you're creating templates and things like that, you use those dynamic tags to fill out placeholders that will change based upon the page or post that you're currently looking at. So armed with that basic knowledge, what exactly can we do? Well, we can create custom templates, we can create different items on the page, we can reference all that data, we can do a whole ton of different things with it. We are going to keep this really simple though, so I'm not going to be delving into templates and theme builders and all those kinds of things. That's its own dedicated video, but this is a good starting point to understand how dynamic tags work and how we can use them to do quite a few different cool things. So with that being said, let's just jump over into a page and let's take a look at some of the real basic things we can do and how they can really spice up a website. So let's start off with a really simple example. How about some personalization when someone lands on your page? Let's take a look at how we could do that. So what we're going to do is we're just simply going to drag and drop in a heading. So we're going to drop that into our page as normal. So if you're used to working with headings and things, you know you can quite happily type information in, either into this title area or into the actual box itself on the page. However, you've probably also noticed that when you see some of these different things, you've got some extra options available to you, and these are denoted by these little sort of like database symbol in the corner. This is the dynamic tags option. So let's click and expand that. And once you expand that, we have a ton of different options available. Now, we're not limited to these. A lot of these different options have more options inside them, and we'll see that in a moment. So as you can see, things are broken down into various categories. We've got post, we've got archive, we've got site, we've got media, and we've got author, and finally comments. Now, you'll see this change depending upon the type of widget that you're using, so you won't always see all of these, and there are some things that you're not seeing in here that you may see in other widgets. But once you understand the whole concept of dynamic tags, you can see how they work and how you can start to reference them. So, for that personalization, let's come down and we're going to say we want to drag some user info in. So we're going to say, click on user info, everything disappears. But what we get now is we get this little section that says title. It says we're using the user info, and we've got this little wrench icon on the left-hand side. Now the little wrench icon is vitally important, especially when you have multiple options underneath one particular data type. So underneath the user info, if we click this, you can see we've got settings and we've got field. We'll click to expand field, and as I said, you can see we've got a lot of different options inside here, all associated with the current user. Now, obviously, if you don't have a logged in user, we need to put a fallback option in there, and we'll take a look at how we can handle that as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to say we want to use the display name. We're going to click on that, and you see it immediately pulls up my display name, which is Paul, which, well, it doesn't really do much, does it? It just says Paul. Well, this is where the advanced option underneath can come in very handy, because we can now put some information before, after, and also put a fallback option in there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to say hi, we'll put a comma in there. So it now says, hi Paul, makes a bit more sense. And we'll just put at the end of it, how are you today? There we go. We've now created something that's a little bit more personalized. So when someone that's logged in accesses the site, they'll have a nice little personalization message at the top, all dynamically generated based upon their display name. So now we've got that personalization message. What about if someone is accessing the site and they're not logged in? They're going to just see, hi blank, how are you today? Which in some instances would work fine. But what we can do is we can drop a fallback value in there. And that fallback value is only going to be used when someone isn't logged in, so we can't see their username or their display name. And we need to put something in its place where it says my name. So we're just going to put in there visitor. Or you could put guest, you could put whatever you want in this. And now anybody that accesses this page that isn't logged in won't see some kind of cryptic message. They'll see something that makes a lot more sense to them. And then if they log in, it'll be replaced by their name. Okay, so that's a really basic example. So we can take those basic pieces of information and we can expand on those and make something a little bit more, well, a little bit more interesting, to be honest. So I'm going to quickly put together a simple page and then we're going to come back and take a look at how we can start pulling in some of that dynamic data. So what we're going to do is we're going to create something that's a little personalized. So it could be something along the lines of a custom dashboard when a user logs in. Could be any manner of different things. So we've got a simple 2-column layout. In the left-hand side, I want to put some details about the logged in user. So we're going to use the same principles as we just saw. We're going to come over, we're going to add in, first of all, a little widget to pull in their profile picture. So we need to grab the image widget. We're going to drag and drop that into the page. We can click to add an image, or we can click on the dynamic tags option. We can click on that. And what we're going to do is you can see we now get context information specific to working with an image widget. So as you can see, as I said at the top of the video, we'll see different information based upon the types of widget that you choose. So what we're going to do is we've got the user profile picture. So we're going to click on that, and that'll pull in the profile picture that's associated with my account. As you can see, there's my image at the top. So now I can just go ahead and style that any way I want. So let's come into the styling options. We'll set our border radius to 100 pixels and we get a nice circular image. And we'll just do something simple like just drop in a border on this. We'll say a solid border that's going to be 5 pixels and it's going to be white. So there we go. There's our white color. There's our image at the top, all laid out the way we want. Add a little bit of space to this section, and what we'll do is just come to advanced and we're going to say we're going to add some padding to the top and bottom. So we're going to say 50 pixels padding to the top and 50 to the bottom. So we've now dropped in a user profile picture. We'll set that all where we want to. Next we're going to come back in, we're going to grab a heading option, we're going to drop that underneath there. We'll center align this, set this to something like H4, and we'll change our color on there a second so we can see what we're doing as we go through. So there we go. So the next thing we want to do now is just pull in our username. So we're going to go back into the content area, click on our little dynamic tags option, and like we did earlier on, we're going to scroll down until we get to the user info section, click on user info, click on the little wrench icon, and we're just going to choose the display name. Come to advanced, and we're just going to say, hi, Paul, and after we're just going to put a comma, welcome to your dashboard. Super simple. Okay, so next thing you want to do is just make sure that all sits nice and tidy. So you're going to come back in and we're just going to put this padding all the way around. We'll put 50 all the way around. There we go. That looks a bit better, and we'll just quickly style our text a little better. We don't want this to be all uppercase. We're just going to say we want this to be normal, so it has a bit more, it's not quite so formal, should we say. We'll lighten the weight up a little bit and we'll adjust the line height on there as well. So we've now created a fully dynamic welcome message. So that's pretty cool. So now we've put that information in, let's add some more data in just so we can personalize this a little more. What we're going to do is we're going to come back over, we're going to drag and drop another heading underneath. We're going to give this a bit of space, so we're just going to come into the settings for this, into advanced. We're going to put some padding at the top, an extra 50 pixels there and 50 at the bottom to separate things out. And we're just going to give this a title. So we're going to come back in and we're just going to say website details. Now this isn't particularly important what we're sort of doing here. This is more just to demonstrate the kinds of things that you can do with dynamic data. So let's just drag another heading underneath there. We're going to set this to be something like H5. We'll set the style to be white, and from there we can now just pull in some extra data. So let's come back over, click on our dynamic tags again, and we're going to scroll down to the site information. So from there we can see we can put in things like the page title, the site tagline, site title, current date and time, some useful information. So we'll just say we're going to pull in the site title. You can see it's just my WordPress because I haven't changed anything on there. And what I can do then if I wanted to is I can duplicate this just to save us a little bit of time. We'll come back over there where it says site title. We'll click to get rid of that. We'll change it to a different dynamic tag and we'll just say we'll have the site tagline. So that will sit underneath it. Finally, we're going to click on this one more time, duplicate that again, and we're going to just delete, come back in, and this time we're just going to go down and we're going to say current date and time. And there we go. We've now put those pieces of information in. And again, if we want to, we can just add in anything before, anything after, and a fallback. So we'll just put in there current time. And there we go. So that set those things up. So these are really basic pieces of information, but you can see how easy it is to pull in that dynamic data, those dynamic tags, and use them. Now let's move on to something a little bit more interesting. I've now come over into the theme builder that's part of Elementor Pro, and while this isn't about theme building, I'll put a link in the description below to a video that'll take you through all of that. This is a good way to see how you pull in the relevant data, the relevant dynamic tags, into a template you may want to create. So just to give you a grounding in what dynamic tags are and how they work in this context, because this is probably where you'll spend most of your time working with dynamic tags. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a very simple archive page. So we're going to click to create an archive and we'll say add new archive. We'll just name this test archive and we'll create the template. Once you've done that, you're taken over then into the blocks editor where you can take a look at using any of the predefined layouts. But obviously we don't want to do that. We want to see how this all works. So we're going to close this down and we're going to just create some basic pieces of a typical archive page so we can then take a look at how various different things work. Now you do have these options for archive title, archive post and author box. However, you can also do a lot yourself. So what we can do is we can simply come over and start adding our own content in. So let's just say we want to get a bit more creative. We're going to click to add a new section at the top of the page. From there, we're going to come into the style and we're going to set a background image inside there. So we're just going to choose an image and I'm going to pull up something like this. Insert that picture, and what we're going to do, we'll just quickly position this and just set up some basic parameters to make sure that everything looks good. So no repeat, and we're going to say we want this to be cover. Then we're going to set the height on this. So we're going to say this is going to be, oops, wrong one. We're going to come in and we're going to say height, minimum height. We'll adjust that to be about there. That'll do. Quickly come into style and we're just going to put a background overlay on there so we can just see what we're going to put on a little better. So we'll just put a background overlay, which is black. There we go. That's looking good. So once we've done that, we now need to have a way of pulling in that dynamic data. And as we've just seen, it's pretty simple to do. So we're going to come back out. We're going to go in this time into our heading and drag and drop that onto the page. We can click now and choose the dynamic tags, and from there we've got additional options. You can see we've got archive, and we can pull in the archive description, the archive meta, and the archive title. So let's create our own title on here. Let's click to insert the normal title, and as you can see it currently says archives because it's just basically a placeholder. So we'll style that, set that to be white, and we'll just quickly adjust the typography on there to make it stand out a little better. There we go. So we've got the title of this particular archive in there, but it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? So how do we see real life data inside here so we can make sort of more informed decisions on how we design things? Well, Elementor makes that super easy. If we come down to the little settings icon in the bottom left hand corner, we can come down to the preview settings. Inside there we can choose what we want to use as the sort of source for our layouts, our data and so on. So we can click and we can choose what we want from there. So we're going to choose the categories archive. And from there, we're going to just choose, don't want to use all, we want to choose a specific one. So I'm going to search for blog, and there we go, blog posts. So once I hit apply and preview, you'll see this data will change and we'll see a little bit more relevant information inside this. So we've now got, our category says it's blog post. So this is just an example. Because it's dynamic data, whatever category we go to, this will change accordingly. So this is the beauty of it, and I'll show you that in a couple of moments. So this is the first thing. We've put in the title. Let's do the same thing again. Let's drag and drop another heading underneath there. We'll set this to something like H5, and we'll just quickly style this so we can see it. We'll adjust the typography quickly, and we'll just set this to be normal. And finally, we'll just configure what information is going to be in there. So dynamic tags again, scroll down, and we're just going to choose archive description this time. And that will pull in any description we've associated with this specific archive. So we created the title and we've done the basics of this. Let's just drop in the archive itself now. So we're going to keep this really super simple. I'm going to come back out and we'll just grab the archive posts and drop that inside there. Make a little bit of space for it. So we'll put 50 pixels above and below. There we go. And we'll just click on this and we'll change that to be cards just so it looks a little bit nicer. There's still plenty of styling and things you could do to this, but this is more a case of, this is just pulling the data in. I wanted to show you how we can actually pull in dynamic tags. So we've now created a very simple archive page. I'm going to publish this, and I'm simply going to add a condition to this is for all archives. Now, all this condition kind of thing is all covered in a lot more detail in the tutorial about dealing with the whole theme builder as part of Elementor Pro. But we've created an archive now, so let's go back to our test site and take a look at what we've just done. So I've added a couple of menu items for our different blog sections. You can see we've got blog and we've got news. So when I choose the blog posts, you can see it tells us category is blog posts. There's our little subheading underneath, and there's the posts we've got associated with that specific category. If we choose the news items, you can see everything updates and we see the different news items underneath, but all done inside that one simple file. So all this dynamic data just means that we can create a template file, and then we can pull in all the dynamic data, and as we move through different posts, different categories and so on, all of that will update accordingly. So this is one of the benefits of being able to use dynamic content or dynamic tags. Really does open up the possibility of minimizing your work and maximizing the results from it. So there's one more thing I want to show you in another way in which you can use these dynamic tags. If you're using a tool like Advanced Custom Fields or Pods or Toolkit, we can reference dynamic data from there. Now, if this is something that's beyond you and you've never used these and you have no intention, well, you can end the video at this point if you have no interest in this whatsoever. However, if you are interested, maybe this will open your eyes to some of the things you can do and how you can use it with the various different widgets. So what I've done is I've created a very simple meta field that just gives us a progress slider, nothing more than that, between 0 and 100. And we're going to use a widget to display that. Now, the reason we're doing it this way is because with dynamic data, it makes it a little bit more difficult to pull data that's associated with posts and things into a normal page. We're going to be using a single template. So we're going to come up to the single, and from there, we're just going to create a new single template, and we're just going to open that up and say it's going to be a post. So once we've done that, we're going to call this test single. Create our template. And we're going to end up with a blank template now. We can close out of this, a blank template that allows us to do exactly the same as we did with the archive. We can pull in and build up a template based upon the single post content. So let me just show you what I'm talking about. Let's take a look at our news items. And if we click to go and take a look from our archive page, this is the single post template. In other words, this is where you'll see the actual post itself. And at the moment, you can see it's not styled at all. So we're going to create that. So what I'm going to do is use these options on the left-hand side in conjunction with how I've showed you to create the metadata. So what we're going to do is we're going to use these because these are specific to creating a post template. So it just makes the whole process a little quicker. So we're going to drag and drop our post title in. We're going to come back up. We're going to drag and drop our featured image in. And we're going to drag and drop our actual post content in. So let's just put that underneath post content. We'll drop that in there. So this is just pulled in those relevant bits of data. Now each of these are dynamic data. They're going to be changed depending upon what post you look at. What we're going to do though is we're going to add in another widget at the bottom that says the progress of this particular project. So we're going to click to drop in a heading. We'll do that underneath, and we'll just put this, and we'll just change that to project progress. And then finally, we're going to come back to our widgets and we're going to look for the progress option. So there's our progress bar. We're just going to drag and drop that underneath our project progress title. And from there now we can set dynamic data. So you can see we can set a dynamic title. We don't need to worry about that. We're just going to call this progress. But what we can do is we can set the actual value. So you can see at the moment it says percentage and it's set to 50, and that's exactly what you can see. However, we can click on the dynamic tags, open that up, and you can see if we scroll down, we have ACF now added at the bottom. Because we've got Advanced Custom Fields installed, we now have some extra options to the relevant sections the way we can work with dynamic tags. So we're going to click on ACF number field. Then we just need to click on the little wrench icon, and from there we can choose the key. And as before, the key is just literally the field that we want to use to supply the data. So you're going to click, and you can see it tells us progress is the option we have, which is the numeric field. We can click on that, and that will then use that for the percentage of exactly where we are. So you can see at the moment this project is 30% in. You can use any other data you want. So if you wanted to pull in this, for example, we want to change the name to a dynamic name, we could do that. We could create a new field specifically for that. The same for progress. You can do whatever you want on there. You can tie these fields in together. It's all very, very simple to do. So that's 3 different ways in which we can use this dynamic data. Now, if we quickly publish this template, we'll just set the condition. That's perfectly fine, and say save and close. Going to come back over now to our test site. We're going to scroll back up and refresh our page. Come to our projects tab, and you can see there's our project. If we click to open that up and scroll down the page, there's our progress bar, all dynamically generated to see exactly what value we have in there. And obviously you can change that value to whatever you want between 0 and 100, and then this will refresh itself and show the relevant data. And this is the beauty of working with these dynamic tags as part of Elementor Pro. They just open up a ton of possibilities in how you can link and reference and use various different types of data throughout your entire projects. So, dynamic tags, helping you take your WordPress web design with Elementor Pro to the next level. Hopefully this has opened your eyes and got you excited about some of the things you can do with this incredibly powerful feature. Now, is this something new to you, or have you used it in the past? Let me know in the comment section below. If you've used it in the past, drop in a couple of links so you can take a look at the kinds of things that you've created with dynamic tags and maybe advanced custom fields or other dynamic tools. All of the applicable links are in that description below. My name is Paul C. This has been WPTuts, and until next time, take care.